I don't know about your mic, but my mic seems to be fine.
Okay, good. Hey, I see Cannoli's tail.
Hey everyone, welcome back to episode 36 of Tech Talk. I'm Michelle and I'm here with my co-host.
Ryan.
Today we're going to talk about the inevitable model collapse.
Yes, this is a fascinating thing that is starting as there's more prevalency of model and trained information out there. This is going to be happening. The decay.
Yeah, so as you all know, these large language models and the companies that develop them, they scrape a lot of data from the internet. And, we may feel, oh, this is so unfair, they shouldn't be able to do that. But in reality, the data on the internet is really messy.
Yep.
And there's false information, and there's just bad data.
And if the reason why this came about is, so before LLMs did not have access to the internet. Mm-hmm. They just had access to the databases that were being provided to them. But now there's been these recent developments and desire to have things not so limited. So like in the past, your LLMs were limited to data up until 2022 or something like that.
Yeah.
But now they want real-time information. They've developed something called RAG, which allows them to access the internet now. But now they're finding that this comes with the challenge of the internet is filled with a bunch of junk that hasn't been sorted and sifted through yet. And so we're getting a little bit of model collapse. And so there's this, we want to share this article today that describes that.
Yeah, and in fact, I think this feeds into that, right? So people are putting model-generated data out on the internet. For example, YouTube.
Yeah.
We're seeing all these AI-generated videos out there. And just imagine if ChatGPT is scraping YouTube data.
Yep.
They're going to scrape a bunch of AI-generated videos. And they want to train a model that can produce good videos. And then, the model's learning from these AI-generated ones with, a weird face. Or like from our last episode, like a Shih-Tzu-looking dog launch into a Schnauzer, right? So that become their new training data.
Exactly.
So next time when they produce a Shih-Tzu, like launching, jumping video, they train on a Schnauzer video.
Yeah.
That's AI generated.
Yeah.
That they're just never gonna have any more accurate data generation anymore.
Yeah, and it becomes a problem. And so and talking about dogs, which is funny because that's the example that they used in this paper here.
Yeah. Hi, JVCB.
Yes, hello. As you can see here, this is the original data. You have the accurate images of the dog species, right? Mm-hmm. Then you say, all right, I want you to generate these species from an AI model.
Yeah.
And then some of it gets correct and a lot of it gets completely wrong.
Yeah, in their mind, all dogs are golden retrievers.
Yeah, exactly. And then boom, then now that it's fed, and look, see, because the majority of the data now says that all these look like this, the golden retriever. Now you've got all the information here saying that they're all the golden retriever.
Yeah, so next time so this is model 1, right? You ask model 1 to generate data that look like this. Model 1 generate a panel that's half of it is golden retriever. Now model 2 get trained on model 1's data. So French Bulldog over here, golden retriever.
Yep.
Dalmatian over here, golden retriever. Funny enough, the golden retriever over here is now a Dalmatian. And actually you can imagine Shih-Tzu and Schnauzer are also the same thing.
Yep.
So model 2 now think everything's a golden retriever. And eventually they're gonna generate something that don't even look like dogs anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
Cannoli
is gonna, except Cannoli is gonna look like that if she falls off the table.
Yeah, she just like
she just can't stop exploring.
The kitchen counter.
Yes, happy Sunday. And good morning, or the last couple of minutes of the morning for us. But yeah, so that is interesting. And then if, so they did a whole complex paper on this.
Yeah, it's called recursively generated data, meaning models trained on completely model-generated data of the same size of the original real-life data set.
Yeah. And so this was published in Nature in July of 2024. Pretty fascinating stuff here, but I like the golden retriever example because it really it really provides a nice simple visualization of how it can happen. And so you can imagine that this isn't only happening with images, right? Images is a nice way to visually represent it in one panel, but it's happening with the words, right? It's happening with the description of what something is.
Facts, history.
Yeah, exactly. Everything can be getting distorted as soon as these models have gained. Hey, Dan. As soon as these models have now just recently gained access to the internet, they're losing control of what data is being used to generate the data.
Yeah, and I think everybody here in the audience, we have understanding of reality, right?
Yes.
But then the younger generations, they grow up with this. They have to learn so much of distinguishing what is false data and what is real data.
Yeah.
And what's the reality, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, we grew up like without these even access to internet sometimes.
Yep. Yeah, so you had to really figure out, all right, what is real? And also the information wasn't coming in so quickly.
Yeah.
Right now, just every second of the day, there's new information coming in to be processed.
And just imagine when you look up dogs, this is the first thing that you know in your life. How are you ever going to, you're going to have such an uphill battle to recalibrate your mind to this as the reality.
Yeah, exactly. And then it's then you can even start questioning, all right, what is reality anymore? It's it's going to be AI is going to be gaslighting us all as a society. But that's why we're here to explain what can happen.
See, this is a real life sheep who open AI.
Yes.
Don't get it wrong.
And then we want to demystify it for everybody, so that way you don't become a victim of AI. And you're actually able to thrive in it, because we always talk about K-shaped recoveries and everything, but in the AI realm that we're in now, it is if you can embrace it and understand it and not be tricked by it, you're going to have a nice advantage.
Can you get the dog? Come on, Cannoli, come here.
Come here. Oh, you know what it is? There's a big thing of chicken over there.
Yeah, so apple is added again. Where's the apple? Oh, there it is.
Yeah.
So remember last year in the summer, they came out a paper saying AI models none of them is actually smart. They're all just relying on pattern matching. Nobody's actually reasoning, right? That was a big deal. I think it was around this time last year. And they're at it again. They came out with another paper called The Illusion of Thinking, Understanding the Strength and Limitations of Reasoning Models via the Lens of Problem Complexity.
Yeah, exactly. So Apple's at it, trying to criticize people arguing that these models are actually thinking. And it's funny because and I think we even brought this up, if you do a Google Gemini or you do a ChatGPT now, it'll show the thinking and the analysis, and it'll even use a term like that. It'll use the term thinking.
Yep.
And then you can see right here, it literally says thinking.
Yep.
And it's fun, and it says thought for 5 seconds. You can look and get insight into this thought process. Now, obviously, this was a simple thing, so it didn't really think all that much.
And actually, ChatGPT 03 itself is admitting that we can say that large language models produce an appearance of thinking rather than engaging in thinking in the human sense.
Yes.
And here's why that distinction matters. At least they're not trying to gaslighting us.
Yeah, exactly. Even though if you have a more complicated thing, it really does a thought process. And sometimes what I've found is that it completely integrates the wrong information, which is a little bit scary. So it's doing its thinking, and it's like, oh, I'm looking up this paper, and then it'll say, oh, I found out what the weather is in San Francisco today. Mm-hmm. So it's almost like gathering like completely erroneous information, potentially even from other people's questions, and like integrating it into its thought process. So sometimes it's kind of scary to look at its thinking.
Yeah, so Dan just said Gemini has a show thinking feature now.
Yep, exactly.
Let's see what Gemini says about that.
Yeah, do the same question.
So the question is, do LLMs have the illusion of thinking? I don't know if you have your show thinking.
No, yeah, there it is, exactly. See, yeah, look at that. Gemini is giving us a lot more insight into their thinking process. So they like trying to get definitions, what is an illusion, synthesizing perspectives.
Yeah, they're really trying to pick on the word illusion.
Yeah, and now this is the pro. Obviously, like if you did a Flash model, it's probably going to have less of this. But that demonstrates that these models are tuned to, like this one seems to be this overly critical, overly analytical approach to it. Like, look at all this stuff.
Oh my God. They're using it against you again. As a neuroscientist, you're uniquely positioned to appreciate the nuances of the question. Do LLMs have the illusion of thinking?
Yes. So now that's what I found is that Gemini, now it responds with everything as a neuroscientist, you should do this. I even asked with the car accident we had, I asked, when can I get my deductible? And they said, oh, as a neuroscientist, you should understand how these lines of communication are very complex and you will not get an immediate result. And I was
are not above the auto insurance just because you're a neuroscientist.
Yeah.
So that's just complete BS.
Yeah, I don't know how they came up with that for me.
Let's just look at the conclusion that Gemini Pro come up with. In conclusion, while the output of an LLM can be indistinguishable from that of a thinking person, the underlying processes are vastly different. So it's also acknowledging that there is a difference.
Yeah.
The thinking so it's really coming from a neuroscience perspective here. The thinking we perceive is a reflection of the collective intelligence embedded in the LLM's training data, not an emergent consciousness.
Yeah, but I would like to know, does access to the internet change this equation? Does LLM access to the internet?
They're going to say, as a neuroscientist, you should appreciate the access to the internet.
Yeah, but see, this is the difference is that it's like, because when I do deep research in ChatGPT and is gathering the papers, it literally comes up with things like, this was my favorite the other day. They couldn't get access to the supplemental information from a paper, so they said, all right, how can I do this? Can I look it up on the internet? Can I download the supplemental information, or can I ask the authors? Like they literally said that they could write to the authors of the paper and ask them.
Is it the agent, the operator?
This was, no, it was deep research.
Oh my God.
So it's like not capable of actually doing that, but it's thinking about writing to the author to get the answer, which is like somebody had to have sort of like trained it into that, right? Because that's what we do often as scientists. If we can't get an answer from the paper, you go and write to the author.
Yeah, and JBCB, you know what I'm doing here? I'm going to clap. I'm going to do this. Great. All right, so what did you say? That's an excellent and crucial follow-up question. Giving an LLM access to the live internet dramatically enhances its capabilities, but it does not fundamentally change the equation regarding the illusion of thinking. Okay, I think it's being a little too literal. Thinking of it from a neuroscience perspective, given an LLM internet access is like providing a direct, high bandwidth data stream to the brain's semantic memory centers, like the temporal lobe. It doesn't, however, spontaneously create the prefrontal cortex executive functions, the limbic system's emotional processing, or the subjective experience of consciousness that I told you not to interrupt me. Sit back. That arises from their integrated activity. All right, let's just look at the conclusion here. All right, so I guess they're saying there's an enhanced illusion. Did they say anything bad? Conclusion, internet access makes an LLM an infinite more capable and useful tool. But it did not say there's corrupt data on the internet. That's the problem. They're hiding that.
Yeah.
All right, you can sit forward now.
Yeah, so the point is that it has to, sorry, I was just looking at this strange analogy. It has to figure out
All right,
something.
let's go to the Chinese room analogy.
Yeah, I don't get
What
it.
is a Chinese room? Search it.
Oh, I think that was it right there. We can just look it up right here. Imagine our previous Chinese room analogy. Giving LLM internet access is like installing a live news ticker. The person inside who doesn't understand Chinese now has a constant stream of new symbols to work with. They can use their rulebook to form responses that are incredibly timely and accurate, perhaps answering questions about stock market crash as it happens. To the outside observer, their understanding would seem miraculous. But inside the room, the processes haven't changed. It's still symbol manipulation without comprehension. All right, so they're trying to argue that the model doesn't actually have any comprehension. And that's why it's so dangerous when you give it access to the internet, because it's going to find and give you an answer, but it's not going to be able to necessarily say, this is not a valid answer. This is an answer based off of wrong information. It's going to be happy that it found the fastest answer. And sorry, one more thing before I stop, because that is what I found when looking at the thinking process. Like the LLMs are lazy.
Yeah.
Funny enough, if you like, they try to take the shortcuts. They try to find the first choice. They try to find the easiest path to an answer, just like a human would do. But they take the shortcuts. They take the easy way out, and then and they kind of give up pretty quickly, which is funny because it's not like they're actually, human in that sense, but they've been trained by humans that are naturally lazy.
Yeah, I bet they've been trained. They've been trained by a group of engineers. Are like, okay, our users are complaining that our data set ends at 2022. We got to give them the newest information at all costs.
Yeah.
Without any safety guardrail that, okay, these are facts.
Yeah.
These are corrupt data. We should never train them. So now it's like we're with a bunch of like the worst quality of the people on the internet is being trained into the model because the companies are
opening up the floodgates.
Yeah.
But luckily, that means we still have a job as the LLM trainers.
Yeah.
Like our job is secure because it's actually, the data is getting worse and there's more need for fixing it afterwards.
Yeah, like my thing is, can they just dial back on some of this instant gratification for the users? I understand companies, they're all profit driven.
Yeah.
Like JBCB, they just said quickest and easiest, right? Let's not take the easy way out because this can really destroy our kids.
Yeah, well, that's why they've got these flash models that are all about being super fast, and they might have a more risk. And that's why we are promoting a lot of the deep research. Mm-hmm. Because the deep research, it can literally take 30 minutes for them to come up with an answer. Mm-hmm. And it's like they really have to go through all the complex, getting primary literature and things like that to get your answers. And so I think that that's a little bit more protected from all the deconvolution that can happen. But everyone wants the flash, the fast answer.
Well, good things take time.
Yes.
Yeah, so you play this game, Ryan?
No, I never played the Tower of Hanoi.
Well, this thing seems kind of easy. I guess the point is you just move around these pegs.
Yeah.
And then only the smaller one could go on the larger one, right? So as you can imagine, you first move 1 and 2 into peg 1, then you can move the base, the biggest one, 3 into peg 2, and then you move. So that was kind of easy. That's not what we played at Cracker Barrel? I was so
No,
sure.
it's not at all. Nothing like this at all. That was like you have a triangle with 12 holes, and you've got 11 pegs or something like that, and then you need to jump over them until you get to only 1 peg left.
Yeah, I'm really bad at that game.
Yeah,
I always do it like with 3 left, and I can't do it anymore. So I'm not the best at solving this kind of. Don't cough into the mic. You okay?
Yes. Continue on.
Yeah, so like this game can get really complex, and that's what Apple did here. They make this game more complex, and then they tested mainly Claude and DeepSeek models. So they tested Claude model against Claude thinking model, and when you increase the complexity to like 8 and above disks, the accuracy just drops so badly. Not even the thinking model can do it, right? So
Yeah.
it's kind of like, if you're doing really complex tasks, how much help do you want from AI?
Exactly. Oh yeah, or how much are you really getting a benefit? Because sometimes these Claude thinking, they're going to charge you 10x the amount for just a regular one, right? And so it's like, are you actually getting that 10x the benefits?
Is Cannoli upset that she's not in the view?
Yeah, she's been really upset.
I'm so sorry.
She's been on my feet trying to get up here.
She's monitoring these papers, see which one's going to replace her.
Yeah. Don't worry, you're not getting replaced, okay? We already tried that last week.
I wonder if OpenAI will ever find out that there's all these sheep poo training data on our channel.
Yeah, they might. They might indeed. It's kind of interesting how they did Claude and DeepSeek and not OpenAI. I mean, not ChatGPT and Gemini. Maybe the ChatGPT and Gemini did pretty well with their with their Tower of Hanoi or something. Yes, there's cannoli. Puzzles. Yeah, and then they're all about, oh, look, here's some more puzzles.
Yeah, so when they analyze not just the final answer, but also the intermediate steps, they found a lot more mistakes.
Yeah.
So I think early on, maybe there is an emphasis with especially easier benchmark tests to make sure that your intermediate steps are also correct. And maybe the models are decent at that. Like they can figure out the correct intermediate step. When you tell them, hey, your final answer is wrong, this is the correct one, then they'll hallucinate a solution that's actually correct. But as the tests get more complex, it's harder and harder for them to have the correct chain of thought.
Yeah.
In every single step.
Hey, it's okay. Exactly. It's hard to get it all right. And so here's some more collapsing. Wow.
Yeah, they have all these different, these Apple researchers, they have all these different games, Tower of Hanoi, checker jumping, blocks world, river crossing. Like, I don't think I'm good at any game.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm generally good at any game, not just these 4.
Well, you're pretty good at Scrabble. You got talent.
Oh yes, I'm pretty good at like making up words.
Yeah, making up words. Yeah. But yeah, look at this. This is really now. What the thing is, I'm not an expert enough to fully comprehend the complexity because maybe, a complexity of 10 for this tower. Maybe I can only solve when it's at 1. You know what I mean? I just don't know the degree of complexity of these games.
Yeah, so we don't really have the full understanding of how good the model is. Like maybe we can only do it up to here. So the fact that the model is better than us is pretty incredible.
Yeah.
And maybe this is applicable to most of the things we ask. And I would encourage our audience here, if you have any question, don't break down, don't put a really complex problem in an LLM to give you a comprehensive plan. I would encourage you to still do a lot of work yourself. And if you have one particular point that you're not sure of, break that down into a singular question. Then the LLM will have a better chance at giving you an accurate answer than you bring a whole complex problem into the LLM itself. And what they also found in this paper is that the limit of token, the token window also play a big role.
Yeah.
You can actually bypass some of these limitations by increase the context window, but then eventually they hit a limit and they collapse anyways.
Yeah, and then you don't know whether you're not getting the answer you want because it's incapable, or you've asked too much in one question, and it's just overwhelmed the system with data.
Oh, thank you guys for acknowledging me. See, people want to hear technical things.
I didn't say, I did not stop you. I'm glad that you're providing the technical information.
Yeah, because you always say that you're a simple guy, right? So
Yeah.
you ask the simple questions.
I do, but no, I shouldn't think other people are like that too.
Yeah, the most accurate answer are going to come from yourself trying to solve a really complex problem and use the AI as a teammate to help you get over certain humps. That would be the best way.
Mm-hmm. Look, here is some accuracy. So look, the 03 Mini High actually did pretty good with checker jumping.
A lot better than anything else.
Yeah.
And it's possible there may be one particular really talented AI trainer out there that made 100 checker jumping training questions.
Exactly.
I'm almost certain that's what happened.
Yep. Yeah, so that's why.
So that's why when you benchmark these things, they're so like uneven, right? Why isn't the model superior across the board with the same percentage of superiority? Is because they heavily rely on training data. Smart human generate extremely expensive human data to train them, and this human can't possibly be good at every single thing on Earth.
Yeah.
And this like kind of indirectly demonstrate that the model are still relying on pattern matching more than actual reasoning.
Yeah, because it's dependent on who's out there giving them the info. So they obviously, OpenAI managed to hire like the world's best checker jumper.
Yep.
And like they did not do that. Like DeepSeek didn't find that person, and Anthropic didn't find that person.
Yeah.
So that's why it's really competitive out there. It's like if you've got an expertise and you have a skill, they're going to be looking for you to train their AI models. Mm-hmm. And we got a couple of links, you know what I'm saying? We can tag that in the description. We know some people looking for more AI trainers.
Yeah. So I bet these AI LLM models are pretty good at neuroscience.
Oh my goodness. Yes. Yes, certainly Gemini has been calling me out for my neuroscience background. It's funny because that's all that they say. They never say anything else. So that's funny. All right, what else? Oh, wow, look at that. There's more checker jumping.
Yeah, I think we're entering a really critical stage of AI reasoning model development that we as humans, as users, we have to be really careful.
Yeah.
These models, they change all the time, and the improvement, it's just kind of like like, all these inspiration people say, right? You're not going to improve like this. You're going to improve like this, kind of like the stock market too. So ups and downs, ups and downs.
Yeah, there's going to be an up and then down, and then there's going to be a regression and everything. So, all right, so here's their conclusion. So they systematically examine LLMs through the lens of problem complexity with puzzle environments. Mm-hmm. They found the limitations, despite sophisticated self-reflection, they failed to develop generalizable reason capabilities beyond certain complexity thresholds. And that's something that you have found is that, like, when we're designing problems that the model can't answer, it's like if you can find one thing that it can't do and you can ask it like 100 questions and it's just like never able to answer it correctly, right?
Yeah, and what's really fascinating is, let's say there's one particular optogenetic tool that the models are really bad at. If I just ask the model, what is this? They're able to find the correct answer.
Yeah.
But if I'm using it in a neuroscience context, especially I layer on other tools, chemogenetic, optogenetic, whatever else is there, and then put this tool mixed in with the other things, they just can't, all of a sudden they don't know what it is.
Yeah, so it's like individually they know what it is, but they can't put it into the context. And this is the thinking, the sophisticated thinking.
Yeah, human would.
Yeah, if a human knew it, they would never make the mistake that the model makes. And that's what's fascinating about these models, because it's like the model knows the answer, individual basis, but it'll make the mistake because it's not fully trained in the whole context of it.
Yeah,
right?
or like as it's solving my problem, it requires so much context window for each of my like trick.
Yeah.
And when I lay on 6 different tricks, it runs out of tokens.
Yeah, exactly. It runs out of the ability to do it. All right, so then so they've identified 3 different regimes. So standard LLMs outperform LRMs, which are reasoning, at low complex tasks. The LRMs excel at moderate complexity, and both completely collapse at high complexity.
I think that makes the perfect sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I would say most of the tasks that we do, like, not for work, just we're low complexity and at most moderate complexity. When we start doing stuff for work, I think we're going into the realm of moderate complexity and high complexity. So you kind of have to go in there and have an expectation that the model may completely collapse and just kind of test out for your specific application, like where do you fall?
Yeah, and that's why there's a lot of people are critical of it because, like all the advertisements are making these funny images and erasing the background of an image. This is like the AI use. But then some people start trying to actually use it to help improve their job at work, and it just doesn't work at all. And then they kind of give up and throw it all out. So that demonstrates that if the AI can't do what you're doing at work, that means that what you're working on is a certain level of sophistication and
or it's
challenge.
so niche that they haven't hired the right AI trainer yet.
Yeah, and they need you actually. Yeah, and so this particularly concerning is the counterintuitive reduction in reasoning effort as problems approach critical complexity. So this is that kind of the laziness that I was talking about earlier, as well as the context window. If it gets way too complex, then the model just gives up and hallucinates an answer. If it's moderately complex, it's going to work a little bit harder to try to get you the answer. But then it's kind of like in school. I remember if I was in a really hard math problem, I might just give up on that because it's just like I don't even stand a chance to get it right.
That's actually the most human thing you've ever said about an AI. It's laziness.
Yeah.
It's complete collapse. That's
Exactly.
very human.
Yeah. Yeah. So investigating the first failure revealed surprising behaviors. So it's like they could perform 100 correct moves in the Tower of Hanoi, but failed to provide more than 5 moves in the river crossing puzzle. They can pave the way. And so I like your hypothesis about the training data and who is there actually training it.
Yeah, because I've actually seen some of the puzzle like translated into actual training data. It's pretty incredible.
Yeah. People do. There are a lot of projects that are actually involved in puzzle making and stuff. And I used to think, oh, what's the point of that? But now I see it's like quantifiable, objective, and then they can look and see, oh, okay, the model can figure out this game.
You know, actually, I reviewed some of these puzzle questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a long time ago. Because if I could solve it, it hasn't been that complex, and it was stumping the model.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, that was cool. So Apple has done a pretty good job again with trying to provide some limitations out there.
Yeah, it's Apple coming out again, you know. Apple may not have the best AI, but y'all suck too.
Yeah, that's what they're trying to say.
Bye, Apple.
Yeah. And then, yeah, look at this. Clearly this river crossing, it struggles even at simple complexity.
Tomorrow you're going to see like all of these models, scroll down.
Yeah, sorry.
Claude, Anthropic, DeepSeek, like river crossing experts needed. We'll pay you $200 an hour.
Yeah, there's going to be job posts. And I don't even know what this river crossing is. This is what it looks like. I guess it's like you have to somehow get across the river without doing a certain action.
Yeah, and the tough part is when you're actually creating training data, this is going to be, this whole thing is actually going to be described in words.
Yeah.
Right? Because an image recognition is kind of testing a different aspect of the model and not so much of its reasoning skills. So that's another layer of complexity that AI trainers have to face, accurately translating the description of a game into words and not confusing the model based on your poor description of the game. It really has to be real complexity.
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be so infinite either, right? Let's assume you can just add infinite number of shapes on either side of this bridge, I assume. That's also not allowed.
Yeah.
Because that's not realistic.
Yeah. Yeah, I see that you need to get everything from one side of the river to the other. Cannoli's got to go to the other side of the river, too.
Yeah, cannoli.
All right, we're going to go outside soon,
Cannoli needs to go poopy.
Cannoli, you got to go outside?
She's really guarding this. Like, I do not want to be replaced.
Yeah.
I'm going to listen carefully to these podcasts, monitor the situation, and see when these humans are going to replace me with the bot dog.
No, you're not going to be replaced, Cannoli. Don't worry. But we will take you outside. All right, any more you want to talk about?
Any more you want to talk about?
No, I think we did pretty good. I think we covered these few papers. Thanks everyone for stopping by.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for the discussion.
Yeah, no, we always appreciate you. Our main audience here. It helps push the discussion forward, and we hope you're also enjoying some of this stuff. We really learn a lot as we go here. And it helps that we have some people to share it with. It really helps a lot.
Yeah, I bet these companies are frustrated too, right? Like they do all this work, they spend billions of dollars. Apple come out like, you still suck. And then it's like whack-a-mole again. Okay, we gotta hire players of Tower of Hanoi, checker jumping, blocks world, river crossing.
Yeah,
whack-a-mole.
I'm gonna look on LinkedIn and see. All right.
All right, thank you guys.
Thank you so much. And we'll see you guys next week.
Can only say bye-bye.
Yes.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Cannoli had a good time. She was much happier this time.